The Blue Jays are apparently open to the idea of trading Vladimir Guerrero Jr. We'll talk about that in the Mariners' big win over the Yankees coming up here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Ahoy, sailors. It is Wednesday, May 22nd, 2024. This is Titan Gonzalez and Colby Patnode for the Locked On Mariners podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On the show today, we're going to talk about the Mariners' 6-3 win over the Yankees last night. Big nights for Dylan Moore and Bryan. We'll also talk more about Vladimir Guerrero Jr., just like we did on Monday, who the Blue Jays are apparently open to trading now. But before we do that, shout out to our title sponsor today, eBay Motors. From brakes to exhaust kits and beyond, eBay Motors has over 122 million parts to keep your ride or die alive. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to bring home that big win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit, only available to U.S. customers. And if you want to hear from me and Colby even more and help support the show, check out our Patreon. The link is in the description, and you can sign up for a free 7-day trial. So Colby, let's talk about last night. Mariners win 6-3 over the Yankees. They had some really nice at-bats against Clark Schmidt and the Yankees pitching staff. And, I think most importantly here, when the Yankees punched back there in the seventh inning with the big 3-run home run from Gleyber Torres, the Mariners were able to respond to that and add a couple of insurance runs to give Andres Munoz more of a comfortable ninth inning, a lot more comfortable than his previous outing the night before, which he absolutely dominated, and he was really good again last night. Dylan Moore was the MVP offensively speaking for the Mariners last night. 2 home runs. He continues his red hot road trip. He's 7 for 15, 3 homers, 3 doubles, 6 RBI, including 4 last night. Awesome game from Dylan. And Luke Raley stays hot with an insurance home run. Ty France with a big home run as well. Just a really good night for the offense. What did you think about the bats last night?
Yeah, pretty good. They were able to get Schmidt out of there pretty early. They got his pitch count elevated, and he was getting a lot off the inside corner, arm side. He was getting a lot of those calls. So the fact that they were still able to put up good at bats and drive up his pitch count.
I mean, Dylan Moore hit a home run kind of because the umpire was not calling the strike zone properly. Like right. Schmidt threw 4 consecutive balls. 2 of them were actually called strikes, and that extended the at bat, and Demo went yard as a result.
Right. So not a lot of damage done against Schmidt, but that's fine. He's been pitching really well. He's having a great year. So like we talked about this a little bit yesterday, like hopefully you can find a way to scratch a run or 2 off of him, get the pitch count elevated, get to the bullpen in the 6th, and then try and do your work against the bullpen. And that's exactly what the Mariners did. So, it was a really good night. Obviously the 4 home runs is a big takeaway here, and that's great to see. But, a guy who had a really good game last night that is getting a little bit overlooked because he didn't go yard. How about Mitch Garver going 2 for 4?
Yeah.
With,
almost went yard. Yeah.
It was very close to being the 5th home run. So, we talk about this all the time. Like right now you have Dylan Moore, who's pretty hot. You have, Luke Raley, who's continuing to do good things at the plate. Like if you could get somebody else in the middle here who can just kind of, carry this weight a little bit. And Garver's been much better in May than he was in April. Still a long way to go. And we've seen Garver have games like this before. And then the next day he's 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts. And you're just kind of scratching your head trying to find some consistencies. But yeah, Garver had a great game last night. I think just about everybody in the offense had at least a good at bat or 2. Even Julio, for example, had the 2 hardest hit balls on the night, and they were both outs. So, get that ball elevated a little bit, and same conversation we've had for the last 7 weeks, but whatever, he's still hitting the ball hard. So that's better than, having bad at bats and popping out to the catcher. So I think just about everybody else had a hit, or they got on base, or they had a hard hit ball, except for Cal, I believe, was an offer. But yeah, it was just a really good attack plan. And we've seen Seattle be very consistent at this, like over the last week or so. Get to the bullpen. If I can get to the middle of your bullpen, I can do damage off of it. And apparently based on, Monday night, if I can get to the back end of your bullpen, to your high leverage arms, I can do damage against them too. So it's been a very consistent, I don't want to call it a game plan. It's more of a consistent outcome. When the Mariners score runs, they really attack your bullpen. And the way they do that is they get your starter out early. And if you do that enough times in a series, particularly a 4-game series, then you're going to see more of the middle of a team's bullpen than the back end of it. And that's when you can do a lot of damage. And that's what the Mariners did yesterday. They scored 4 runs off of the Yankees bullpen. They scored 4 runs the night before off of the Yankees bullpen. And they've won the first 2 games of the series. And the next 2 games are absolute gravy. I mean, obviously you want to win both of them. But if you don't, you've still accomplished your goal for the series. And you could take a few more risks. Like tonight, Andres Munoz probably available. He hasn't thrown a ton of pitches the last 2 days, but you still have another, 12 games in a row after this or whatever, 11 games in a row after this. So maybe you say, let's not use Andres tonight, and then we'll have him for tomorrow and Friday.
Right.
And they can be a little bit more careful with how they use guys. And so they could take a few more chances in the series because they've got the series secured. And if they win today, they find a way to win today, and they have like the series win in their back pocket, they can be super careful with how they roll out their lineup tomorrow. They can give guys days off. They can, just say, you know what, Munoz is absolutely not available no matter what, because they've won the series. And so you don't want to necessarily ever punt games, but like the goal at the beginning of every series is to win the series. And if you have a 4-game series, the goal is to split. It's really hard to beat any team 3 times in 4 days. Very difficult, particularly, on the road, and particularly against a really good team that's playing good baseball. So Seattle right now, they got the first 2, which is huge. They can kind of manage the next 2 as a result of that, to kind of have an eye on the big picture. But yeah, the bats last night were really good. It's a continuation of how they were in the 9th inning the night before, which is funny because it didn't start out that way, because the Mariners' BABIP luck in the first inning was awful. And then they just started hitting the ball over everybody's head anyways, and it didn't matter what the BABIP luck was like. So offense was really good, and it has been much better in May. We're still waiting for, can we get like a week straight where the team's scoring like 5 runs a night? Like that'd be great, instead of this 4, 5, 6, 1, 1, 3, 9. It's like, how about just 5 a night for like a week straight? Like I'll take the 9-run games, don't get me wrong, but like I'll trade the 9-run games for just consistently scoring 5 every night.
Yeah, that would be great. You mentioned Mitch Garver. Since hitting that walk-off against the Braves, what was that, April 29th? 228, 318, 439, 119 WRC plus.
Yeah, not great, but serviceable.
Yeah, average, not really where you want it. And strikeout rate still 36.4%. He is counteracting that a little bit in the walks. 10.6% walk rate during that stretch as well. So yeah, not a perfect product, but a lot closer to the guy that you thought you were signing this winter. And it seems like he's starting to turn the corner a bit more. So that's nice. This bullpen though it's terrifying right now. This team really needs to just go out and trade for Austin Adams or whoever. Just name a high leverage arm, right? Or just a mid to high leverage arm. It doesn't even need to be a straight up high leverage arm right now. Eventually by the deadline, you need a high leverage arm. But like just right now, like, can you just get another mid to high leverage guy? Because like Trent Thornton yesterday, Gabe Spire got in trouble. He was accredited with 2 of the 3 runs on the Gleyber Torres home run. Stanek, I mean, he got the job. Know. He got the job done last night, but he also left a pretty appetizing slider out there for Aaron Judge, who just missed it and got pretty lucky there. So yeah, I feel terrified when anyone not named Andres Munoz comes out of the bullpen right now.
Yeah. Spire, unfortunately, like we never really got Spire and Munoz both being like great this year. We got it for like a week. And then like Spire, his last, pretty much all month, he's had like 1 really dominant outing, 1 pretty good outing. And then the rest are just like he's walking guys. He's, not close to the strike zone. So you hope there's nothing wrong there. And if there was, I'm sure it would have put him on the IL if there's something like physically wrong with him.
Right.
But yeah, you just don't have that guy right now. You have Munoz, and then you have a bunch of guys that you're just praying, holding hands and pray that like you can find a way to get the ball to Munoz with a lead. And if you do that, you have a pretty good chance to win. But it's Stanek's been okay this year. Spire's been pretty good overall, but pretty rough lately. And, even Thornton and Voth have both been actually pretty good this year. Like, it's not like they're not good. It's just that, like, you don't want any of these guys pitching with the game on the line in the 7th, 8th,
Trent Thornton should not be throwing high leverage innings with consistency. Like the occasional high leverage inning, fine, right?
Sure.
When like a guy is down or a couple of guys are down, fine, right? But
I mean, like
he's like the 4th guy that they go to right now.
Up 4-0, with 2, or I guess there was 1 out at the time, runners on first and second to the bottom of a team's order. It's not a terrible time to use Thornton.
Sure. But it
does have some home run issues.
But it is the Yankees in that ballpark, that Mickey Mouse ballpark. Like,
and he has had home run issues in the past. But like, if you're not going to Munoz in that situation, who are you going to that you feel better about than Thornton?
Yeah,
you really feel that much better about.
No. But that's the problem, right? It's not really a Trent Thornton. It's not really a Trent Thornton issue or Gabe Spire issue or Ryan Stanek issue. It's a Mariners bullpen issue. They just don't have enough guys that you can really, really trust in those kinds of moments.
They are surviving right now, and I think that's the best way to kind of.
He did what I was hoping he would do, and just kind of challenge Torres. Just Torres put it in the seats.
Don't let the tying run come to the plate.
Yeah.
Because you walked a guy. Like if the guy hits the home run, fine, whatever. We reset. But if you walk the guy and now the bases are juiced and the grand slam ties it, yeah, it's not great. So they'd have to go get somebody and people, just to get out ahead of this, Santos does not count because A, you don't know if you're getting him back.
Yeah.
B, even if you tell me that you're guaranteed to get him back, we don't know when. And C, we don't know how effective he's going to be.
Yeah, we don't know when. We don't know if he's going to be effective. We don't know if he's going to be able to stay healthy.
Right. There's just too many questions marks. So, like, you need 2 high leverage arms. And it's possible Santos is one of them. It's possible.
Sure. You can't assume that, though.
You can't assume that.
If you're the Mariners, if you're Jerry DiPoto and Justin Hollander, you can't assume that.
Right. And even if you want to, and even if we give it to you, like, yeah, okay, fine, Santos is a high leverage arm. You're still 1 short.
Sure.
So, yeah, the Mariners are going to have to do some bullpen shopping. And I don't think this is the kind of thing where they could just go look on the waiver wire or go look,
we really like this guy's stuff. We think we can get the most out of him. Like, you should still do that. And maybe you do hit on one of those guys.
Yeah, right. And then they can build themselves into being a highlight. Like Paul Sewald, he was not a high leverage reliever when they called him up. He was the guy who pitched when you were down by 2 or whatever.
Right.
And then he became that because of his production. You could still do that, and you still should do that, by the way, because you can get better in the middle too. That's not a bad thing to have better middle relievers, but I think you're gonna have to pay up for something closer to the Santos range, like you did this winter, sometime in the summer.
But yeah, really good win for the Mariners last night. They at least split the series with the Yankees, which is huge. They're now 5 games over 500. They're 3 games up on the Rangers in the AL West standings right now. So good stuff all around, and shout out to Dilly Rolls. We'll see if Jorge Polanco gets in the lineup tonight, but who knows? who freaking knows at this point? That's been a really weird situation.
Lefty on the mound. I'm interested to see, do they sit JP? Because you're not taking Dylan Moore out of the lineup, particularly against a lefty. No. Do you take Luke Raley out of the lineup right now? He hit a home run against a lefty last night. He's been good against lefties. Do you take him out for the sake of Mitch Haniger?
No. I think I'm taking Canzone out.
Sure, and that can be Haniger, but you're not taking Garver out against the lefty, I don't think.
Right.
So, like, are you taking Ty France out
Maybe
against the lefty?
Demo plays 3rd instead of Arias?
Yeah, it could be. So we'll see. I mean, the lineup might actually be out right now. Let me check, but we'll talk about that after the break.
Yes, and we'll also talk about Bryan Woo in just a moment. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by PrizePicks. Baseball season is in full swing, so don't miss your chance to add your favorite players from the diamond in your PrizePicks entries. Whether it's strikeouts, RBI, or first inning runs, take your pick more or less and add them to your PrizePicks entry today. You can also get in on the basketball playoff action and win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks as you and the world's best players take the game to a whole new level during the postseason. And today, I'm deferring my pick to the little green guy behind me, if you're watching on YouTube, of course. And Grogu here is taking Naz Reid more than 10 points tonight against the Mavericks. Download PrizePicks today and use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's promo code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. You can catch games 3 and 4 with the Yankees tonight and tomorrow morning on the Mariners hometown broadcast with SiriusXM via the SXM app. All you have to do to find that is search the word Mariners, and after tomorrow's game, we'll be recording a post-game show so you can catch us in the afternoon recapping the series finale between the Yanks and the M's. So like Colby teased towards the end of the first segment there, we actually do have the Mariners lineup for tonight. So we're going to talk a little bit about that real quick before we get into Bryan Woo. So what's the lineup looking like, Colby?
Yeah, so they decided to take Luke Raley out of it against the lefty, which I hate. But
not a fan of that. Yeah.
No, but some good news.
Mm-hmm.
Jorge Polanco is back in the lineup tonight.
There we go.
So he's playing second base. He's hitting seventh. The lineup tonight goes Crawford, Rodriguez, Garver hitting third, DHing tonight.
Interesting.
Cal Raleigh hitting fourth. Dylan Moore hitting fifth and playing left field tonight. Okay. Ty France, Jorge Polanco, Mitch Haniger in right, and then Luis Urias at third. So Rojas getting the night off. Getting the first couple innings off in theory, and so is Raley, and that's how they're navigating this lefty matchup. So
all right. So let's talk about Bryan Woo. He was awesome last night. And he's now thrown 11 and a third innings in Yankee Stadium in his career, all scoreless. 7 strikeouts last night, no walks, just a couple of hits allowed. He was smoking Juan Soto last night. It was a lot of fun to watch. So what did you think about Bryan Woo's night last night?
It is interesting that arguably Bryan Woo's 2 best starts of his entire career have come at Yankee Stadium. He was just dicing guys up yesterday, and it was, it's Bryan Woo. He's throwing 95, 96, and like he'll challenge guys right down the middle of the plate, and they can't touch it. Bryan Woo has this insane ability to like throw a fastball down the middle of the plate in counts where a fastball is coming, and that's pretty much every count with Bryan Woo, because I think he was 80% fastball last night. So a fastball is coming. As soon as it leaves its hand, you're like, oh, this is down the middle. I'm going to crush this. And then nope, you can't even foul it off. It just blows it by you. So Bryan Woo might have one of the 5 best fastballs in baseball. I think right now Mason Miller is probably ahead of him on that list, and Spencer Strider, a healthy Spencer Strider, is ahead of him on that list. I don't know if anybody else is, because
Paul Skeens.
Yeah, there you go. Paul Skeens probably right now. And all those guys, funny thing, all those guys have like elite velocity, and Woo can rush it up there. Don't get me wrong, but he sits 94, 95. He doesn't sit 97, 98. And yet he's still blowing fastballs by Judge and by, Soto and all that. He had a 45% whiff rate on his 4-seamer yesterday. 45% for context.
On a 4-seamer.
Yeah. For context, like 25%, pretty good. 30%, really good. Last year, Luis Castillo, minimum of 200 batters faced. I looked this up last night. Last year, Luis Castillo led all of baseball in whiff percentage on his 4-seamer, 33% on the year. Last night, Bryan Woo was at 45 on the 4-seam fastball. That is insane. That is unheard of. Like that is nuts. And so Bryan Woo right now, I mean, he's looking like a number 4, number 3 right now, and that's with literally 1 pitch. Although the slider was pretty good last night too. Don't sleep on that slider. It was pretty good. It was pretty nasty as well. So Woo just dominated. He throws a ton of strikes, which, I mean, if you're going to be a Mariners starter, you have to throw a ton of strikes. Like, there's very few exceptions to that. Like, Luis Castillo is the wild one in the group, and he's averaging like 3 walks per 9. Like right. That's the highest you can go and be in consideration to be a Mariners starter. And Woo just throws a ton of strikes, and he gets insane fastball value. Like, his fastball might be the single best pitch in the Mariners organization. Like, it's right there with like Matt Brash slider, Andres Munoz slider. Like, his fastball, when you add up the velocity and you add up the rise and you add up the command and just the
effortless delivery. The effortlessness of that delivery is
like that has to look like it just explodes out of his hand.
Yeah.
Because there is no effort in his delivery whatsoever. It is one of the smoothest things I've ever seen. And Woo was sensational. And, there'll be times where, the velo dips a little bit and like he's not hitting that top line. He's kind of down more thigh high.
Sure.
with the fastball and not on the corner. And that's when he'll get hit, right? Like the fastball at the top of the zone, if he gets it above the belt, it's a really difficult pitch to square up. If he gets it on the corner, it's a really difficult pitch to square up. Your best shot to hit his fastball is that he throws you something, kind of middle of the plate, but below the belt, about thigh high. Like at that point, you're going to have enough time to put a good swing on it. In theory, easier said than done. But Wu has been, great since coming back, and there were no like long breaks in between any of the innings this time around. So he was fine with that last time. When obviously the start, his first start, they took him out, blah blah blah. The next start, there were 2 long layoffs, and he was fine. He was 93, 94.
Like the velo was fine. His command wasn't as good that 6th inning against the Royals.
Right. But this time out, there wasn't really a long break. The 3rd inning, I guess, was a little bit longer, but came out. He looked fine the entire night, and he probably could have gone a 7th pretty easily, but they decided not to push it. Which
his pitch limit was 85 last night. I think he ended the night
77. I think
77.
Yeah.
Let me check here. It was 77. Yeah. 58 strikes, by the way.
Dude's insane. So yeah. But
and the fact that he had Juan Soto and Aaron Judge looking lost last night.
Right. Just on fastballs.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like he had a nasty slider that nobody had ever seen before or anything like that. Nope. Here's 96 down the middle, hit it.
And by the way, it's not like you're like catching those guys at like a good time or anything like that. Like Aaron Judge has literally been the best hitter on the planet in the month of May. So
right.
Yeah.
Right. And so like you're getting whiffs on fastballs in the middle of the plate against like Judge and Soto. That is an elite pitch. Like Bryan Wu's fastball is the closest thing to 80 grade in the entire system on any grading. Like Bryan Wu's fastball is the closest to 80 as any other individual tool in the Mariners system. Like it's closer to 80 than Clase's speed, for example. Like it's an insane pitch. And it's the reason why, we didn't really want to trade him this winter. It's the reason why, what do you do with Hancock when Wu is ready? You send Hancock down because Bryan Wu is significantly better. Because Bryan Wu with one pitch on a four-seam fastball, no less, is significantly more likely to dominate than somebody like Hancock, who pitched well, is with, 55, 60 command and 4 pitches. Like it's just nuts. If Bryan Wu ever like finds a consistent slider, maybe a curve, like if Bryan Wu could, like, if you told me right now, next year, Bryan Wu was going to have a 50 slider, like on average for all of his starts, and like a 50 changeup, he's my Cy Young pick. Like I would legitimately bet on him to win the Cy Young because the fastball is that good and he's going to throw more than enough strikes. So Bryan Wu has been exceptional and it's great. It's great because, Logan wasn't great. His start, obviously Miller wasn't great. Kirby wasn't great. Even Castillo, he put up a good stat line, but he was really trying to work through some stuff. And Bryan Wu just went out there and just made it look so easy. And that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun to watch. Speaking of good fastballs, we're going to have Brody Hopkins here on the show on Friday. Favorite prospect of mine. That was a really fun conversation. You might have already seen the screenshot, the little teaser that I put up on Twitter. But I had a fun, kind of short-ish conversation with him. So you guys will be able to check that out on Friday. We actually weren't supposed to have a show on Friday, but now we will for you guys. So so be sure to check that out. All right, we are going to talk a little bit more about Vladimir Guerrero Jr. We got asked about him during our mailbag on Monday, and now we actually have a report that says that he could actually get traded this summer. So we'll get into that in a second. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into an MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Again, that is ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit. Only available to U.S. customers. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Once again, you can catch Game 3 and Game 4 with the Yankees tonight and tomorrow morning on the Mariners hometown broadcast with SiriusXM via the SXM app. All you have to do to find that is search the word Mariners. And once again, we'll be joining you tomorrow afternoon after the game for the Locked On Mariners postgame show. So be sure to check that out. But now let's talk a little bit about Vladimir Guerrero Jr. once again. We talked about him a little bit on Monday because we got asked about him. But now we actually have a report that says Vlad Jr. could actually be available on the trade market this summer. Per Mark Feinson, a American League executive, told him that the Blue Jays would actually consider not just trading Vlad Jr., but also Bo Bichette, saying, quote, "I don't think they're opposed to it." Interesting. Now, that kind of contradicts my feelings that I shared on the situation on Monday, where, you know, again, I talked about, you know, Ross Atkins, their GM, Mark Shapiro over there. Like, they have essentially built the identity of their regime around Bo and Vlad, and I would be surprised if they essentially waved the white flag there, because I don't know, to me, I feel like that ends up with them getting fired. Now, maybe this is the powers above them that are saying like, hey, we need to hit the reset button. Who knows? Right. But I'm a little bit surprised that the Blue Jays are actually open to doing this. But if they are, Colby, I mean, you already kind of shared your feelings on this in general, but let's talk about this a little bit more. What do you think about the idea of trading for Vlad Jr.?
Yeah. Don't love it. You know, he's not really having much of a power heavy season right now. And I feel like the Mariners need to add some thump if they're going to add a first baseman. But also, Vlad Jr. is kind of an overrated player. Like, he had the one superstar year where did he win MVP that year?
I don't think he won MVP, but he was really good.
He was up there. Right. Yeah. He had the one superstar year. And then last year he was, he's okay. And this year he's been pretty good, but with almost no power. And like, you're not getting anything defensively. You're not getting anything. And by the way, you could stuff the Gold Glove talk. We know Gold Gloves don't mean anything when it comes to defensive value. So we know he's not going to get anything base running wise either. I mean, more than Ty France, but that's not really a high bar to clear now, is it? So to me, I look at Vlad Jr., a year and a half of him roughly, and I just go, you know, sure, but like, at what cost? And to me, I'm not willing to give up, you know, Emerson, Ford, Young, Laz, Feldman. Like if we want to talk about like Ty Locklear and Ty Pete, then like, okay, like I guess that would be fine. Like I don't hate it. I understand what you're going for there, but I don't think that the Blue Jays are going to be interested in that idea at all. And like, I think they're going to be like, okay, well, give us Colt Emerson. And
right.
To me, that's
no. And going back to the whole Atkins Shapiro conversation here, if they're essentially like working for their jobs, right? And they're going to need to knock this trade out of the park. And I assume they're going to ask for the world for Vlad Jr. and Bo Bichette. Like, I don't think this is going to be, hey, give us Johnny Farmelo and Jeter Martinez and Jonathan Clase. Like, that's not what's going to happen here. They're going to ask for, I mean, it probably is going to start with Wu and Miller. And obviously the answer is going to be no from Seattle. And then at that point, Toronto will probably go, okay, that's fine, but we want Colt Emerson and Las Montes and Jeter Martinez or Logan Evans or whoever on top of that.
Right. Somebody today pitched, I can't remember who it was, a reporter or something, pitched Laz for Vlad straight up. I don't think the Blue Jays would do that. No. But also, I don't know if I would. Like, I'm just not sold on Vlad being, you know, the fix here. And
let's go over the numbers a little bit more specifically here. So, like you mentioned, 2021, he was insane. Like 6.3 win player, 166 WRC plus. Yeah. He hit 48 bombs that year. And then the next year, he was really good again, like 32 home runs, not as good as he was in 2021, but still really, really good.
Sure.
133 WRC plus, 3.4 win player. Then 2023, he was fine. Like 26 home runs, 264, 345, 444, 118 WRC plus, 1.3 win player. But that's a fine player, right? That's a fine hitter. It's not a great hitter. That's not an elite hitter. That's not a star hitter.
No.
And then this year, 279, 374. He's been a 123 WRC plus, but there's that 385 slugging percentage. Only has 4 home runs this year. I see a lot of red flags with this player. And again, power oriented players now having to play half of their games in T-Mobile Park. How do they translate? Again, like I said on Monday, I think he's one of those guys where like his power plays anywhere, but still, like you do have to worry about that at least to a certain degree, how he translates to playing half of his season in the city of Seattle. I just, for a year and a half or not even a year and a half, like a year and a couple months, at that price point too, because again, like the big factor here, right, is also John Stanton. Is he going to be willing, in that ownership group in general? Are they going to write that check? Because Vlad's already making quite a bit of money in arbitration this year. So whatever that's prorated to by the deadline or whenever you acquire him. Plus, he's probably getting like 25 million in arbitration next year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe 30. So yeah, I just don't see it. Like, and by the way, if I'm going to go get like a big asset this summer, like Vlad would certainly be considered a big asset. Yeah. I kind of want that guy to be able to help me in more than just the batter's box, because if he doesn't help me in the batter's box, at least I'm getting like, well, I'm still getting defense. I'm still getting base running. Like I'm still getting something here. So that's why I'm more open to the idea of Bo Bichette.
Right. Because if we're talking about Blue Jays players that are going to cost a lot, Dalton Varsho and Bo Bichette are higher on my list than Vlad Jr. right now.
Right. And so, that's with Bo Bichette not really hitting yet. He's starting to hit a little bit, but he's having a really down year. And like, well, what do you do with JP? Well, I mean, Bichette can move, JP can move. Like you have potential.
That's not an issue.
You have potential holes at second and third base. And, Bichette doesn't steal as many bags as he used to, but he's still a good base runner. He still has speed. He's still a good defender. And I think we know he's a better hitter than this. So, if I'm going to pay the freight for one of the Blue Jays guys, it's probably going to be Bichette.
Yeah.
I just, to me, I look at Vlad Jr. and I go like, that's like the idea that people think is really good. But when you really break it down and you look at the fit, the actual fit in this ballpark and with this payroll and, going forward, it's not really a slam dunk. I mean, like, would Vlad help? Sure. Yeah. I mean, like he's certainly an upgrade over Ty France. Is there a point, like, is there a reasonable point that we can get to where you're just like, yeah, I mean, Vlad makes a lot of sense here. Yes. I mean, there absolutely is a price point. I don't see the Blue Jays, because the Blue Jays have to sell this to their fan base. And like, I think the way they do
and again, Atkins and Shapiro have to sell this to their bosses.
Right. I think the way they do that is by bringing in like really good major league players now, or guys who are like elite prospects who are close to the big leagues. And I don't think any team's going to give them that for Vlad Jr., to be honest. Maybe they can get that for Bichette, but I doubt it. Like, you're not getting Bryce Miller. You're not getting Bryan Wu. There's not a player who will be traded this summer that I would give up Bryce Miller or Bryan Wu for. So just cross them off the list entirely if you're thinking about it. And I really don't want to give up Emerson. Like I would for the right player. Like I'd give up Colt Emerson if I could get Isaac Paredes, but I'm not giving him up for a year and a half of really anybody, let alone a non-superstar. Vlad Jr. is not a superstar. He had one superstar year and he's been slowly declining since. Yep. And, for him to be a superstar again, to be a 6-win player, he's got a slug.
He's a star really only in name, not production.
Right. And like, again, like, would he help? Sure.
Yeah.
But if you're telling me, hey, you have to give up, just hypothetical here, you have to give up Johnny Farmello for Vlad, which again, it's going to cost more than that, I think. Maybe I'm wrong. Or you can give up Ty Locklear for 2 months of Pete Alonso, which I don't want to do either. I would go take Pete Alonso. So I just don't see a fit with Vlad really at all. Again, there's a point where the cost is so low, and maybe we're overestimating everything here. It's certainly possible, but I don't see a way that the Blue Jays are going to trade you, either of their two like faces of their franchise. I don't see a way they do that without getting Wu or Miller, which is not going to happen, or a package that has to involve Colt Emerson. And that should not happen because it's only a year and a half for two guys who are not, not performing as we think they should. I mean, even though Vlad's been good overall, he's not the player we think he should be. And Bichette hasn't hit at all. So
for me, if you want me to even consider that cost, you're also going to have to throw in Jimmy Garcia and probably Jordan Romano as well.
Right. There are ways to make this work. Like if you can, like, hey, would you give up Colt Emerson, or would you give up Johnny Farmello, or let's say Laz and Johnny Farmello, right? Just land on a price. It's like, I mean, are you also giving me Garcia and Kiermaier, Garcia and Swanson, or like you have to give me something else?
Swanson's been terrible. It might be Romano though, because like Romano might be more of a throw-in at this point because he's been pretty mid this year and he's making money.
Right. And so we'll see. I mean, like it's possible. I don't want to say that the Mariners shouldn't have any interest in Vlad, but for me, when I think about what is it likely to cost Seattle specifically to land Vladimir Guerrero Jr., I'm out at the price point I'm perceiving. Like again, if hypothetically we get to July and they trade Las Montes for Vlad, am I going to be furious? No. Am I going to be like this is they smoked him. Like this is such a great deal for it. There's no downside to this. Absolutely not. There's big downside to trading for Vlad. So, at the end of the day, I'm open to it, certainly, but I don't think that the Blue Jays price and what the Mariners are willing to pay are ever going to line up on this particular player.
Yeah. And going back to the money situation, right? Again, the Mariners should be willing to add as much payroll as Jerry Dipoto and Justin Hollander need, right? John Stanton, Chris Larson, the rest of the ownership group should be willing to write that check, right? Especially if this team is in the same position that it's in right now by the trade deadline, where they're 3 games up or whatever on the division, right? They should be willing to do anything it takes to elevate this team into a true World Series contender. But if they do that, I don't think this is the player they do it for. I just don't. No. I don't see it.
No, I'd agree.
Because I know that Jerry's going to have reservations about Vlad. I know that Justin Hollander is going to have reservations about Vlad. And if they only have one shot to add a player that's making some money, I just don't think they're doing it for Vlad.
No, I don't see it.
So there is an outcome here where they trade for Vlad, and I can talk myself into it, and I'm excited, all that. I just don't think that's possible.
I don't think it's likely. So we'll see. It's tough to judge these things until we actually see like what it looks like. And obviously things could, like if Vlad goes on a tear here and we look up in July and he's, same batting average, roughly the same on base, and he's slugging 460 now. Like, yeah, that changes things a little bit. But Vlad is not the type of guy I would target. I'd be interested. I'd listen, but he's not the guy I'm going after. Like if the Blue Jays call, I'm immediately being like, okay, what about Bichette instead? Let's talk about Bo. Let's talk about Varsho. Let's talk about, because the Blue Jays, if they are sellers, do make some sense for Seattle. They have multiple pieces besides Vlad that makes sense for Seattle. Right. So not saying no, I'm saying that I doubt it would get to a point where I would love the cost.